Hey there, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Space Weather Show. We're coming at you a little bit late today due to sleeping in. We've got major changes coming to the channel, which we'll discuss. We've got a live stream coming tomorrow, so make sure you join us for that at 3 p.m. Eastern. We've got a little bit of increase in activity on the closest star and another CME with some Earth-directed components as a solar storm, otherwise known as a coronal mass ejection impact, starts to subside. We'll tell you all about it and more here at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. This is the past 24 hours of the closest star, and we're going to show you some fantastic close-ups. You may see a brightening happening right there, known as a Hyder flare, when plasma splashes back down toward the solar chromosphere. The transitional region lying beneath the solar corona and above the photosphere. Huge plasma filament there stretching around the limb below our Earth scale. Here's the equatorial zoom. We've got some filaments, and at least one new sunspot group will finally get a name today. I'm pretty sure that one actually, and I'm talking about this sunspot up here. This one actually was a sunspot days ago, never got a name. Evaporated and then reformed. So now it's clearly going to get a name. And anyway, here's some filamentary activity going on the western limb. And you can see a close-up of that Hyder flare right in there. And that was involved with a coronal mass ejection that will be having an earthly directed component. So another CME on the way here. You can expect that one to arrive sometime late in the day on October 24th. It'll only be a minor geomagnetic storm at the most. It's a small coronal mass ejection that's pretty diffuse. Here's a close-up of that filamentary activity going on the western limb there. And it's just at the end of the video, the largest prominence there showing up. Here is the southern hemisphere. Huge filaments down there as well, including this prominence over in the southeast. Actually, two prominences over there, which you could call large if you consider, 6 times the diameter of the Earth large. And yes, folks, solar prominences do get a lot bigger than that. However, that's pretty decent. Here's a closer view. These wavelengths are depicting ionized iron and ionized helium, by the way. The SDO AIA instrument, 193 plus 304 angstroms. So we'll definitely show you some more sweet imagery here in a bit. First, about tomorrow's live stream and about changes coming to the channel. So make sure you join us tomorrow. We'll be talking with the analytical anarchist, the particle punisher, the ravishing reasoner, the monotone from Minsk, Eugene Bagashov. It'll be at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So again, join us for that. It'll be a live interactive conversation. We're going to talk about whatever we want. The host is actually Eugene. I'll just be the tech this time, although it is being hosted by our channel. So if you haven't subscribed to Eugene the Philosopher, make sure you do. Eugene the Philosopher. Make sure you subscribe to his channel. And about our channel, change is coming. So starting Monday, these daily space weather videos are gone from the morning portion of the day. They're coming back to the evening portion. So we may even have a consistent time. I'm suspecting it might be 6:30 p.m. So the daily space weather show now coming to the evening instead of the morning. So a little bit of a change there, and I suppose it'll change the audience quite a bit. It'll certainly affect who is able to view the live premiere events. So that should be exciting. I'm pretty excited about it. Not sure. We might even rebrand the channel. So if you see the avatar suddenly change, where it's not me yelling at an eagle with the sun in the background anymore, that has something to do with it also. We might put SNN as our avatar So yeah, change is coming. Again, make sure you join us for tomorrow's live interactive conversation with Mr. Bagashov at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. You might even be able to control the conversation, especially if you have interesting comments. Now, you may have seen some community posts that we put up last night. If you haven't, make sure you check it out. It's youtube.com/smashomash/community. Or you can just click the link right there next to playlists. And we posted 2 videos criticizing a certain channel that some people consider to be competition to this one with respect to daily space weather content. And I've got some comments of my own. First, here are some clips from Dave Farina's video, Professor Dave Explains. Because a lot of people seem to be claiming that this content creator, this cult leader of this channel called Suspicious Observers, is some kind of a science guy. And you can tell 5 minutes into listening to him talk that he does not know science. He just says numbers without units. You know, it's very clear that this guy does not understand what he is talking about with respect to science. So anyway, here's a little clip from the Dave Farina video, which is entitled Suspicious Observers is a pseudo-scientific doomsday cult. Because it is. So here's the, quote, science paper that Ben, quote, published. It never passed peer review because the statistics in the paper do not support his ridiculous hypothesis that coronal holes cause earthquakes. So here's a little clip.
On the paper, so I reached out for some commentary. Here are some excerpts from what he had to say.
And here's the response that he got. If you'd like to read it, feel free to pause the video on that frame. And basically what he's done is looked at historical data and identify a pattern, and there is no pattern. So it's not science. And so that's one small portion of the Suspicious Observers is a pseudo-scientific doomsday cult video. And then you've got this one from Mr. Bagashov here, Eugene the Philosopher. This one is just entitled Ben Davidson and Suspicious Observers. Now, did you know that Ben's ridiculous cosmology theory about a galactic current sheet, which there are all kinds of issues with it, but did you know that it requires a grand solar minimum? Have you noticed if you watch the Suspicious Observers channel that for some reason there's no talk about grand solar minima anymore? Is it because it's obvious that we aren't in one? So this guy is certainly not Eugene, the host of Suspicious Observers, is a master gaslighter, apparently. Now, this channel has like 700,000 subscribers. And, I mean, certainly hundreds of thousands of people are being misled by this. I watch it for the comedic value because, I mean, the level of nonsense is just off the scale. But anyway, let's show you a quote here from Eugene's channel. He's talking about how part of this theory of as why the sun is going to explode and it's going to flip Earth's poles because reasons, and Earth's axis is going to suddenly tilt and the crust is going to slide around, and all these insane things that are not backed up by the fossil record are going to happen. It requires a grand solar minimum, except now it's never mentioned anymore. So not exactly sure what that's all about, but anyway, here's a clip. As Eugene was duped by this as well until he looked into it.
The evidence that we're heading to a grand solar minimum, and I cannot think of any evidence. Like it's almost ridiculous.
So yeah, Eugene used to watch the channel. He even had a premium subscription for a while. And, you know, it's a prime example of how even somebody who understands science can be duped by somebody who sounds confident. Now, one of the things that Ben does all the time, the host of this channel, Suspicious Observers, is that he says something really extreme, like Earth's axis is going to suddenly tilt 90 degrees overnight and then suddenly tilt back somehow. And he just glosses right over it and just moves on to the next thing, putting a series of large words together in a ridiculous word salad that makes no sense. And like this is just the common thing. Couple more things about the host of this channel, Suspicious Observers. This guy just found out this January of this year that ceramic doesn't conduct electricity. Like what? What? He's like telling people how to build bunkers to protect them from the solar superstorm, the solar micronova that's going to destroy civilization and cause Earth to suddenly shift and the oceans to slosh over the continents. But here's my favorite criticism, okay? At the end of every video, every day, this charlatan says, "Eyes open, no fear. Be safe, everyone." What the hell kind of advice is that? That is the most emotional roller coaster, ridiculous, silly, nonsensical, unexperienced advice you could ever possibly imagine. Find a Navy SEAL or a Delta Force operator and ask them if they ought to go out on a mission with no fear. Like, this is the silliest advice I've ever heard. This is the advice of a third grader who's never first faced any adversity or danger in their life. What are you talking about? Eyes open, the world's going to end, the sun's going to explode and kill us all. No fear. Be safe, everyone. Yeah, that's going to make you real safe. Great idea, dude. Anyway, let's move on because I don't want this video to be too lengthy. I could go on for a long time about this nonsense, though. So, yeah. So those are some additional criticisms. If you're saying if your tagline is "Eyes open, no fear, be safe, everyone," you are an entitled child who has never faced danger or adversity. Period. If you want to support this channel, do it via our Smash Team site, smashomash.com/SmashTeam. We like facts, and we cover the space weather from a non-propagandistic portion of reality. And we're not interested in starting a cult. I'm not interested in being a cult leader. I just want to take space weather mainstream because it's going to be responsible for rewriting cosmology. So smashomash.com/SmashTeam is one way to support us. Another paid endorsement, again, these are paid endorsements, folks, is from the Hemp Lucid links below this video. Get your CBDs, whether it's water-soluble, oil-soluble, whether it's mushroom gummies, whether it's stress, sleep, and immune stacks, or the full stack package, which saves you even more cash, body balms, lip balm, CBD for your pets. Do it via our link. Help support the channel that way. Increase the probability these videos will continue to exist, remain publicly visible, and free for all to view. Linked below the video on the homepage. You can also find bulk spices on our Amazon shop at amazon.com/shop/smashomash. Spice your food, folks. If your food is bland, buy some bulk spices and spice it up. I mean, we've even got a recipes section at smashomash.com/forum. So maybe check that out. I don't know. But stop buying these little tiny bottles of spices at the grocery store for like $8 when you could get a giant 2-pound can of it for like $12 instead of paying $35 a pound. Pay like, I don't know, $12 a pound. It's insane. Like, spice prices are ridiculous. They're expensive to begin with because they're fairly exotic. So pick up some spices via the Amazon shop, save some dough, and increase the quality of your cooking process. Bulk spices, not tiny bottles from the grocery store. A terrible idea. These will get delivered right to your door for a lot less than you're paying at the grocery store. Today's featured product is Universum Liberate. We're teaching you how to liberate your brain as well as your wallet. So, yeah, Universum Liberate. It's the motto of the Galactic Federation Special Forces. If you're concerned with bringing peace to the galaxy, this is part of the way. This is one of the ways to do it. Universum Liberate, folks. Help support the Galactic Federation Special Forces. They are looking out for people like you. The symbolism represents the Milky Way galaxy, signals integrity and security, and instantaneous galactic scale reach. The interstellar environment, it's filamentary. It's nothing like the solar system, folks. The galaxy is nothing like the solar system. Universum Liberate. Convince your friends and foes that you're in the Illuminati with our handsome unit patch of the Galactic Federation Special Forces. You can find all the links at smashomash.com, the official homepage of the Smash News Network, Least Busted Name in News, launched back in 2019 in response to the pathetic censorship by an organization known as Feces Book. Yes, Feces Book, one of the 4 evilest corporations in the world. Smashomash.com. Free speech purists, not free speech phonies. We encourage all free speech. We encourage all legal speech. So don't make a fool of yourself in the comments. We won't delete them or mute you. So if you say something dumb, you'll be responsible for it unless you delete it yourself. You may be berated in the comments section if you say something moronic. All right, so it looks like 2 new sunspot groups are going to get named today. Right there is one, and right here is another one. This is the one that should have been known as 3469, but was never named, even though it was in view for days. Then it evaporated, and now it came back. It came back like a ghastly visage reminding us that somebody forgot to name it. So this one got a name yesterday. That's 3469 now. This will be 3470. This will be 3471, I suspect. If it's being named correctly, there is the colorized magnetogram for the same period of time. That is October 20th and October 21st to date. Let's take a brief look at volcanoes and see what's erupting. Besides my pure, unadulterated rage. Just kidding, folks. I'm perfectly fine with it. Sakurajima is erupting, producing a 9,000-foot ash plume, 12,000-foot ash plume over the Philippines on Luzon Island from Mayan. 12,000-foot ash plume there now. Noted. 7,000-foot ash plume over Ibu on Halmahera, Indonesia. Semeru exploding, flight level 140. It's a 14,000-foot ash plume over East Java. Dakono, continuous emissions there, 8,000-foot ash plume over Halmahera, and headed down to north of Mexico, Popocatépetl exploding, flight level 210. It's a 21,000-foot ash plume. Santiaguito, no recent volcanic ash observed there in Guatemala. However, Fuego exploding, flight level 170, flight level 210 over Nevado del Ruiz as it explodes. It's a 21,000-foot ash plume. 22,000-foot ash plume over Sangay in Ecuador, also exploding. Revenador exploding in that same nation, 14,000-foot ash plume, and not sure about Sabancaya. But I'll tell you this. Don't pole vault the caldera. It could be unhealthful, folks. Next, earthquakes. And there have been a few earthquakes across the U.S., none of a 5 or greater magnitude, so we won't really cover them. However, there's the map. And a bunch of quakes here around the Ring of Fire. We'll cite quakes of a 5 or greater magnitude for the past 24 hours, starting with this 5.0 in the Izu Islands there, south of Japan. And we've seen that's been probably the most seismically active place in the whole world for the past week or so. And another 5.0 occurring there. Are these foreshocks suggesting a larger event may happen? We are overdue for a 6 magnitude earthquake. And no, we don't claim to forecast earthquakes. It's not so easy to do that as certain channels on YouTube claim. They're not forecasting earthquakes. Here's a 5.1 at Indonesia there. That was at 1951 Universal Time yesterday evening. 2.6 in Utah. So that's where things have ended. Some of these quakes could be foreshocks, folks. Some of these quakes could be foreshocks. And my favorite place for a large quake right now is still here, south of Japan, near the Izu Islands, because that area continues to shake. And remember, folks, any earthquake could be a foreshock. Are those additional foreshocks? Let us know in the comments what you think. And it's time to return to space. So, here's some more imagery from SDO. That's another 24-hour video featuring the ever-popular 171 angstroms along with 304. And I would note this area right here, that has produced another coronal mass ejection. That likely has an earthly directed component. Most of the ejecta will miss Earth to the southwest. However, some will likely rendezvous, again, late in the day on October 24th. Here's a closer view of all of that. The spectacular equatorial view from my favorite telescope, the Solar Dynamics Observatory. Ah, that's good stuff. So, some stats. The 10.7 centimeter radial flux now all the way down to 126 solar flux units. There is the 1-year graph of the radial flux, seeing the lowest levels here since February of 2023, when certain channels on YouTube were telling us that we were at solar maximum. How did that work out? They said we're at solar maximum right here. And then the sunspot number rose up over 200. So that worked out well, right? Oh, we're at solar maximum. It's okay. Cheers. Radial flux down to 126 solar flux units. Sunspot number coming up here a bit. We'll get to sunspots here in a moment. First, the NOAA forecast. As we come out of geomagnetic storm conditions here, we'll drop back down to a geomagnetically calm condition rapidly. As check out the solar wind now back below 300 kilometers per second. We'll get to that too in a minute. Again, another CME impact expected to arrive late in the day on October 24th. Here's the past 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space as depicted by the Space Weather Modeling Framework, our Geospace Magnetosphere movie. It's showing magnetohydrodynamic pressure. Those units are nanopascals. Again, that's the last 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space. You should see that subsiding there at the end, and indeed you do, with that subsiding of the solar wind speed. The last 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from the ground looking like this, and a bunch of aurora photographs came out, so make sure you join us over on the platform formerly known as Twitter, x.com/smashomash, and yeah, some significant ground magnetic perturbations there, magnetic flux density from the ground level. And by the way, if you're a North American viewer, at least US and Canada, and you think you might have a chance to see the aurora, this is one way to check it out. The geoelectric field map. It shows induction into the power grid, and that is quite close to real time, and it's empirical data. It's literally showing you voltage in the power grid. So it's affected by your latitude, it's affected by the substrate, and it's affected by the space weather environment. So Earth's crust, the solar wind parameters, as well as how far north you are, affects whether or not you're likely to see the aurora. And that is a great way for our US and Canadian viewers to have an idea, as these things can show up very quickly and subside as fast as they showed up. So here's the ACE solar wind for the last 24 hours, and we're just going to skip that because it has a huge section of missing data, so that's no good. Here's the Discover for the last 24 hours, and that coronal mass ejection impact was indeed pretty weak. I mean, the highest we got in the solar wind density was only about, 13 protons per cubic centimeter. The highest speeds we got were only about 350 kilometers per second. And again, they have dropped back down to below 300. Current conditions are about 11 protons per cubic centimeter for the solar wind density. Solar wind velocity here, 296, incredibly slow solar wind. And check it out, here comes one of our Twitter, our most recent Twitter follower, I think. So there's a great auroral image there from, that is from Alberta, Canada. And the Twitter user there is, to give her credit for her imagery, it's Jill Traver, folks. Go follow her on Twitter. Jill Traver. Yes, shout out to Jill for getting that great image of some green and some pink aurora there over Alberta, Canada. And you can see some variations happening here in the GOES magnetometer. No real surprise there, as solar plasma shows up and causes some perturbations in the outer Van Allen belt, the location of the GOES 16 and GOES 18 geosynchronous satellites. Next, and we've got another news section today. We might even keep it as part of the video, so let us know in the comments if you think, well, I'll get to it. Here's our top view ecliptic plane field plot. You're going to see the South Pole current sheet spreading out here, an indication we may see continued growth in the northern hemisphere, that new sunspot, 3471, I believe it'll be called. So yeah, North Pole current sheet arrival continues to be delayed here. Sector boundary crossing might still not be here by tomorrow's video. So that's what's going on. The Gong 2 magnetic data, it does indeed have predictive value. We've used it repeatedly for years. And let's move on to our line of sight field plot. Here the solar B field is depicted in blue, polar fields in red and green for south and north respectively. The photosphere magnetism depicted in grayscale. And here's the new section that I think we're gonna keep this, because it shows a really cool 3D image of the heliospheric current sheet. So yeah, check that out. I like it. What do you think? Let's blow that up even bigger, because that's totally sweet. And you can see the sector boundary crossing. It's wiggling all around because there is a lot of magnetic indecision happening right now over here in the eastern hemisphere. So there's some coronal holes that have been migrating for the past couple of days. Also, this new sunspot that's just about to get a name today, right in there, showing up. That is certainly affecting things. And, you know, this is depicting the heliospheric current sheet's polarity there. You can actually see like a 3D indication of how the current sheet is waving around. So a great example there of how the magnetic environment can change quite rapidly indeed. So that is our line of sight ecliptic plane field plot. And I think I'm going to keep that as part of the content because it's just awesome. And that blue line there, that is the sector boundary crossing. You can see that getting pulled way over to the east there, not only because of a coronal hole, but also because of a sunspot. So two different inputs there affecting that field. So here's our line of sight coronal hole plot as we move to coronal holes. And you'll see a North Pole coronal hole here, suddenly migrating to the south. The solar polar field reversal process happening right there before your very eyes. You won't find any more in-depth coverage of Solar Cycle 25 than our channel. So that's what's going on. And let's move to coronal holes from SDO's perspective. So let's cut back here for a minute. So there's the latest. We've got south. Okay, so these are south. Wait a minute. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. So these are south. These two well-defined coronal holes, and all the rest are north. So these are north, north, north over here. And let's show a little closer view there of the more well-defined coronal holes. Like I said a couple days ago, this one is likely to cause some effects at Earth. Probably not a geomagnetic storm. It's not a super large or super well-defined coronal hole. And as far as a coronal hole forecast, folks, you can expect an uptick in coronal holes over the coming 2 years. Because shortages of things lead to surpluses of things, or at least a normal statistical amount of things. So sunspot number has come back up. Sunspot number now at about 74, it looks like. Sunspot number 74, as reported by Royal Observatory of Belgium. And here's our flare probability monitor and sunspot solar flare scoreboard. So this one got named 3469. This one will probably get named 3470. And this one will probably get named 3471. So two new sunspot groups are about to get named today. I suspect if this one doesn't get named, this one certainly will. Frankly, it's overdue. This one should have been called 3469. This one should be called 3470. And this one should be called 3471. But whatever. It's fine. I mean, it is what it is, I suppose. Now back to the SDO. There's 171 angstroms to highlight the active regions. Another 24-hour video for you there. And here is SDO Continuum by itself. So this sunspot group here features like a dozen umbrae there. I mean, they're small, but those count. Small umbrae are still umbrae. So oh, you know what? There's another group as well. This group down here I don't think has a name yet. So that group, there might be as many as 3 new named sunspot groups today then. And by the way, if you're mad about each sunspot, you are nuts. You are nuts, or, well, maybe you're a brainwashed cultist, but either way, if every sunspot that appears makes you mad, you've either been consuming nonsense or you are a cult high priest. Getting to energetic particles and solar flares, the ghost proton flux remains flatlined here. And the likelihood of seeing a spike in this is kind of low because there's not a lot of space weather coming in at the moment. Not a really high likelihood of large solar flares at the moment. Anyway, there is the X-ray flux, and it has come up a little bit here. Largest flare of the past 24 hours was around 00:30 this morning, half past midnight. On October 21st, it was about a C2.8 class flare, and let's take a look at that from SDO's perspective. Where did it come from? It came from right in here. And that was the event associated with that coronal mass ejection that is now headed Earth's way, expected to arrive once again. I'll say it again, late in the day on October 24th. Don't expect to see more than about a KP5 from that, and probably even less. We'll probably see, I would expect it to not exceed even a KP4. Again, most of that ejecta will miss Earth, and the portion that hits, not likely to cause a major geomagnetic storm event. Next, let's take a chill pill and take a look at what's going on overhead. As Deneb sweeps across the horizon, check it out. There's Deneb, the fascinating celestial pole star at the other end of the Earth's precessional cycle. Precession, it's what causes Earth's axis to shift. Not spooky galaxy interactions and not spooky solar explosions. Earth's axis shifts gradually over a period of about 25,000 years. Anyway, we've got Mercury, Mars, and the Sun up there in the sky, but again, Deneb sweeping across the horizon there. Check out the way it rises. It just kind of slowly slides across the horizon there. As the constellation Cygnus rises in the northeast. Anyway, moving right along, we're going to have a first quarter moon tonight. So let's do a solar system forecast. This is where things are now. We'll advance this 1 week. There's the first quarter. There's where things will be on the 28th. It looks like full moon will be on the 29th. 29th is the full moon. There's where things will be on the 28th, 1 week from today. And if you want to be spooked of this, here you go. You can be spooked of this. Uranus, Jupiter, the Earth, the Sun, Mercury, and Mars are all in a very rough line, which means absolutely nothing. But you could be spooked of it if you like. Let us know in the comments if you've hidden in your bunker because planets frighten you. Next, the astronomy photo of the day, and it's showing first quarter, how during different times of the year, the opposite side of the moon gets illuminated during first quarter. It's showing first quarters from the year 2022. All 24 of them, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a moon specialist, but there you go. apod.nasa.gov if you want to read about first quarters. I'm not that excited about it. Let's get the coronal mass ejections. I'm excited about those. And here come some images. It's the Soho-Lasco C2 and C3. And first of all, the C2 is lacking data. There's this morning. That's the tail end of that latest CME. The one that's earthly directed. Well, it's not fully earthly directed. Again, most of it will miss to the southwest, but there is likely an earthly component. Right there it is coming out of C2. And we've just paused C3 here because it's jacked. But let's just quickly advance this. So there is that CME. We showed you the origin of it, and we're going to show you some more fresh videos first. Stereo A's coronagraph, located right here. We've got the raw coronagraph on the left, slightly ahead of the difference imagery on the right. So there it is. There you can see that CME popping off. It started to emerge from behind the coronagraphs around 3 o'clock this morning. Associated with that flare that happened at 00:30. There it is on the difference image. It's quite a diffuse coronal mass ejection. Again, it's not going to be a major impact. We'll be lucky to see a KP4 from that. I'd say the maximum you'll see from that would be a KP 5.33. It all depends on magnetic field orientation and strength. So before we show the filaments, here come some custom coronagraphs. And you might see some jittering here in the C3 imagery because there's some missing data there on it. So that's why you're going to see some shaky looking imagery. It's not because of any spooky disasters. It's not because of Nibiru. It's not because the galaxy has been affecting the spacecraft. Here's a little closer view there. Mercury sliding through the frame as it moves out of conjunction or alignment or whatever it is. I don't know. No, planets are not in charge of solar activity. So here's a close-up. The full disk view, again, that latest CME that's likely to have an earthly directed component came from right in this area right here. You'll see a brightening of that region as some of the plasma splash back down and some of it is headed toward your town. Those are the facts. Let's get to filaments, since filaments are also facts. So there you go. Huge filament here just rising in the east. That's an exciting one. Check it out. That's a filament that's certainly worthy of a name. And if you want to name filaments, here's how you do it. Let us know. Let us know which filament you'd like to name. So that one. And then take a screenie of it. And then head over to X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. Brilliantly rebranded to X. Hey, get off it. Brilliantly rebranded to X. And then just post and type the hashtag, name that filament, tag me, and pick a living person. Name it after a living person, since filaments are lively, and that one certainly is all too worthy. If you don't name it over there on X, it's not going to get named unless I decide to come back and name it Mark Zuckerberg. So if that's not incentive to name the filament, I don't know what is. Hashtag name that filament over on X. Thanks to our new Twitter follower. If there's even, I think there's 2 today. It's amazing, which means we'll probably mysteriously lose 2 followers also, as the pathetic censorship continues on all social media platforms. And no, alt tech is not any kind of an alternative to social media monopolies. Anyway, here's El Teide, Spain's ground-based solar observatory once again. And there are some significant prominences over here. By the way, that might signal a new sunspot rising, but it looks pretty dark on the far side of the sun, so I'm not convinced that there are any sunspots likely to rise in the next 24 hours. Continuing right along to our GOES 16 SUVI imagery. That's the past couple of hours there, and you got this prominence going on over here, prominence over here. There we've zoomed out to show the time and date stamps. And let's blast through bonus features and meteorology to get this thing onto your screens. Satellite charging hazards. We've got some minor ones here in the central Pacific Ocean, moving into the western Pacific. They are surface charging hazards as low energy electrons build on the outsides of spacecraft. The GOES electron flux here, which is measured at the F layer of the ionosphere, quite low, which is typical of geomagnetic storm conditions. And again, we did have minor geomagnetic storm conditions. I think I showed it, right? Did I show it? I didn't show it. And there you go. There's the KP index, as I said earlier in the video, now subsiding. It did get to KP5. That was the peak of that minor coronal mass ejection impact. That one was moving a little bit slower than expected as well, but it arrived pretty much on time there. KP is now 2.67, the planetary K index, folks. An average of a global geomagnetism. And let's move on to the ionosphere and so forth. That is where the electron flux is measured, by the way, at the F flare. The GOES 16 and GOES 18 from there. Very high geosynchronous orbits use radiography to measure the GOES electron flux. There it is over the past year from Solon.info, staying low here, and now we can expect an uptick in the electron flux. Let's see what NOAA thinks. NOAA thinks it's going to tick up as well. I would tend to agree. It never even got as low as NOAA expected there. NOAA was expecting a real low electron flux, probably because of that coronal mass ejection impact. But it was such a weak coronal mass ejection impact that it didn't really pull it down that much. So we do see some scintillation in the ionosphere, which we'll get to here next. The F flare is what we'll be showing. Again, that's where the electron flux is measured. Here's that slice of Earth's bridge between Earth and space. As we get closer and closer to meteorology. So here we'll see a lot less high-frequency anomalies on the F ionosphere ionosonde map. No surprise there to our regular viewers, since there was a coronal mass ejection impact and a mild geomagnetic storm. So that's what's up, courtesy of Australian Bureau of Meteorology. And there is the anomalygram depicting anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median. So a lot more red appearing there. That is ionosphere scintillation from solar plasma, making its way from space down toward your face. From space to your face. We cover the weather throughout the entire portion of the universe. I came from cosmology, and I returned here to help the Earthlings be able to understand how things like weather work. Cheers. Anyway, here's the latest image coming at you real late today. 15:15 Universal Time there. Ionogram, 15:15 Universal Time anomalygram. And as you may have come to expect, lots of red. Low-frequency anomalies, which are consistent with geomagnetic storm conditions. Next, the ionosphere nowcast, the whole atmosphere model. Wham! The whole atmosphere model. Depicting total electron content and maximum usable radio frequency. On the left for GPS users, on the right for radio users. We'll also show total electron content, free electrons to about 12,500 miles of altitude. Feel free to pause the video on this frame if you're not familiar with the distance to the inner Van Allen belt or your GPS satellite or the outer Van Allen belt. And by the way, the GOES satellites are somewhere up around here. 23,500 miles of altitude. Somewhere around there. Here's a total electron content on the global scale. Those are the most likely places to see GPS errors. And here is the total electron content anomaly over North America. And things are looking pretty normal there. No major anomalies. The most major ones are around the west coast of the U.S. Last but not least, space weather ends with these latest images. Here's one new sunspot. It is beta gamma class now, so it has evolved a little bit into a more exciting type of sunspot since yesterday. This one right here, again, a lot of ombre there. Looks like it's degraded since just earlier in the video. Not sure if that one will get a name or not, so let's just move on to this one. That'll be known as 3470, I think. There you go. It's beta gamma class. And was there another one? I thought there was another one. Is there one over here? I don't know. Anyway, here's the full disk rockback. Again, counting sunspots. I'm not... It's not really that big of a concern for me. And again, if you're mad about every sunspot that forms, make sure you leave us an angry comment, as we love angry comments. They're extremely amusing. So thanks to everybody who's very, very mad about something with space weather or something that we do on the channel. Cheers! Thank you very much. We appreciate your rage quotes. Next, we're looking at ocean currents. Yeah, ocean currents. Check out that awesome Pacific equatorial flow there. So cool. The Pacific equatorial flow. It goes east to west at the equator, and then just north of the equator, it goes west to east in a very consistent type pattern. Also, a current goes from Japan up into the North Pacific. And of course, a current encircles Antarctica. It's part of the reason why we think Antarctica stays cold. It's also because of this large landmass, allowing cold air to just hang out, meanwhile being encircled by cold ocean water. There are the currents of the Atlantic. And of course, the most important one to most people in the world is that one right there, the Gulf Stream, which, as you can see, isn't shutting down. It's making its way up to Ireland and Iceland, as it always does. And guess what? If you're banking on a year without a summer for 2024, you're going bankrupt. It's as bankrupt as your concept of grand solar minima. If you're spooked of the planet freezing, it's not happening this next year either. Because, folks, if all of the data refutes your hypothesis, abandon the hypothesis. Just saying. Facts, I know it's very controversial. Gee, pardon the controversial facts. So, here are the surface winds of the east. Shout out to our viewers from this side of the planet. Check it out. Tasmania is right in the middle of a low pressure zone. Oh my God, dear God. There are the jet streams of the east. Like sands through the hourglass of time, these are the jet streams of Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. And these are the surface winds. Powerful low here in the northern Indian Ocean. Also the North Atlantic and the North Sea, featuring some strong winds. Surface winds of the western world looking like this. And I think the strongest winds in the world are right there, just off Baja California, as that system is breaking down quickly. It's being ripped to shreds, exactly as forecast, because of upper-level wind shear destroying the upper-level cloud tops and preventing additional convection with high pressure, tamping the system down. Here are the jet streams of this side of the planet. And here's what's going on as far as rainfall. An inch an hour there, so not even that heavy of rain. An inch an hour is pretty heavy, but... And over the southern portion of Baja California, 2 inches every 3 hours there. So again, that system is being torn to pieces, not only by that wind shear, but as it makes landfall, it's going to cross over Baja California and be a shadow of its former self. So here is the NASA GOES Interactive Weather Satellite Suite shortwave radiation map. It depicts clouds and fog, since the western portion of this map is still dark, I think. At least partially. And here's a close-up of that hurricane, and you can see it right at the end there. It just breaks down. Look at that. Blow. Kablooey. Bam. Kazam. Kazam, starring Sinbad. Next, our weather.gov map. There you go. There is a bunch of gale warnings there. A bunch of gale warnings on the east coast of the U.S. Some blizzard warnings remaining. I pressed refresh. All right, that's the current map. If your location is lit, click your location at weather.gov. You're able to go to a website if you're able to view this video. And let's do some forecasts, starting with the GFS model. That's a 72-hour GFS pressure and precipitation forecast, and there is some snow likely coming to the northern Rockies. So there's the start of it. It starts in about 3 days. And look at that hurricane just being shattered once it hits the Mexican coastline. It's going to go from a hurricane to a rainstorm in the blink of an eye. Actually, it'll take about 6 hours, but that's a 72-hour GFS pressure and precipitation forecast. Here is the temperature anomaly forecast for the same period, same model. It is in degrees Celsius, so take note of that. Very high temperatures here coming to the central U.S. As high as like 16 degrees Celsius above normal there for places like Nebraska, Missouri, Kansas, and Iowa. Low temperatures coming to the East Coast. Last but not least, the factor that's in control of your weather, the 250 millibar winds known as the jet stream. There you go, tropicaltidbits.com providing these forecasts. It's the GFS 72-hour jet stream forecast. So a bunch of cold air is going to be dipping down there into the U.S. once again at the end. We'll have like a doubled up jet stream there for a minute. Let's move on to lightning and get this thing completed. There's our lightning mapper. Not a lot of lightning in the continental U.S. over the past 10 hours. In fact, I don't think any. There's a real-time lightning map, courtesy lightningmaps.org. And the world's heaviest lightning here is in the northern Mediterranean, around places like Croatia and Italy. Moving right along to our U.S. Doppler radar map. Clouds and fog. And there is water vapor. We will end this video with a recap. Looks like a lull in the rainy activity here in eastern PA, with more showers coming later in the day. There is the clouds and fog view, the 3.9 micrometer infrared radiation map, and there's a 6.19 micrometer infrared radiation map depicting water vapor. Hopefully that clears things up. Hopefully you're not consuming a bunch of crap on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And may that solar wind and interstellar wind be at your back. I'm going back to the bunker again. Lots and lots of stupid crap encouraged me to climb in.